Howdy y'all, Caleb here. Today we're talking some Seraphon strategy. We're looking at one of, I think, pound for pound, one of our best hero units in Seraphon. Now that may sound crazy considering we've got some great heroes, but we're looking at the Skink Priest today. This little guy is only 70 points when you're building your army list, and he has a lot of utility. So we're going to take a little bit look at his War Scroll and then what he can do for us. So his War Scroll on the surface isn't all that impressive. 4 wounds, that is not good for a support hero. This guy will probably get sniped in a few games. That's okay. He's got a 5-up save. He does have a missile weapon, which is an Starbolt, 18 inches, 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, -1 rend, 1 damage. That's his best attack he's got. It's not bad. You might plink 1 wound off of something every once in a while with him. His melee profile is terrible. 1 attack, 4s and 4s, -1 rend, 1 damage. So it's obvious this dude is not supposed to be in combat. So this is a pure support hero. And you want to keep him positioned that way. You want to keep him positioned with whoever you want him to support. So we can see his abilities here, and this is where really we're going to get our best use out of this little Skink Priest guy. He has some abilities. Starstone Staff, and what this does, you pick 1 friendly skink unit wholly within 12 of this model and roll a dice. On a 3-up, until your next hero phase, that unit can run and still shoot and or charge in the same turn, and you can add 1 to the save rolls for attacks that target that unit. You can't stack this on top of a unit more than once. So this is pretty big. You know, you're talking about a prayer roll, basically. It's an ability that on a 3-up, so more than likely it's going to go off. And you can allow that skink keyworded unit to do a couple different things. They can run and still shoot. They can run and still charge. And they get +1 to their saves. That right there is like 3 awesome buffs that were given on just a prayer here from this little Skink Priest. But that's not all. His command ability here is you can pick 1 friendly skink unit wholly within 18 and add 1 to their hit rolls made by that unit until your next hero phase. So now we've also layered on another thing that we can use with this Skink Priest. So we've got 4 solid buffs, not just solid. We have 4 great buffs that are coming out of this one small little 70-point hero. And so this offers a lot of flexibility. It offers a lot of variety of how you're going to use this guy. You can apply this to a bunch of different units, and you can apply this a bunch of different ways. So what units can this Skink Priest buff? Well, any skink keyworded unit. So obviously that includes skinks, Camo Skinks, Bastiladons have skink keyword, Engine of the Gods, they have a skink riding it, they have a skink keyword, Skink Chief on Stegadon, Stegadons in general, Skink Oracle on Troglodon. The list goes on. Salamanders, Razordons, Ripperdactyls and their Chief, Terradons and their Chief, Skink Priest, Skink Starpriest, Skink Starseer. You've got basically half the army that this guy is going to apply buffs to. And when you start looking at what these buffs are, it really opens up some new and interesting strategies for how to use those models. I mean, if we're looking at some of these here, you know, skinks, this guy right here is critical to getting the most bang for your buck out of a big block of skink hordes. And so you have your big skinks that are there, and they've already got great range. You know, skinks can shoot 18 and they can move 8. And with this guy added to it, they're adding on their run to that as well, and they can shoot and still charge. And so you can add 6 inches onto their range, +1 if you're using the constellation. Maybe throw in cogs and get another 2 inches there. But it adds more range to the skinks, but it also adds to their save. So like these buffs here, you know, if it was just run and shoot or run and charge, that would be amazing right there. But it's both of those. But it's also +1 to their save rolls. So those skinks that have the shield, So they're 5 up normally. Now they're going to be 4 ups. So now these skinks that used to be pretty squishy now have a 4-up save. That makes them pretty awesome. So I think this guy paired, of course, with the Skink Starpriest, which we'll talk about probably in the next video, is pretty vital to your skink hordes. Chameleon skinks, although you're not probably going to be hanging around with the Skink Priest around them, they can take the buff. Bastiladons is one I really like. I play a lot of Thunder Lizards, and Bastiladons, the Skink Priest is basically a cheap Thunderquake. With Bastiladons and Thunderquake, they can run and still shoot. Well, guess what? For 70 points, I can make them run and still shoot. You know what else is fun, though? When you apply that prayer, and now your Bastiladon has +1 to their save rolls, that Bastiladon's already at a 1-up save, which is pretty goofy in and of itself. But now we're adding 1 to it, and even if somebody brackets it down to a 2-up, you're going to add 1 to those save rolls, and now you're going to keep them alive even longer with that. So quite useful for there, and you can get +1 to their hit rolls, which makes the Bastiladons hit a lot harder, especially if you're double firing them in Thunderquake, that kind of thing. Engine of the Gods, Stegadons, those are all great use for the Skink Priest as well. I've used it a couple times where I take the Skink Chief on Stegadon, and he's going to be my missile. I'm going to add the Cloaked Feather to give him +4 to his move, and we're going to run and charge and shoot, and this guy's going all the way across the board turn 1 and is going to be hitting into something valuable that I want to get rid of. And so it can make these Stegadons quite a bit faster when they can run and still shoot and charge. So it's basically, for those guys, it's basically a cheap Thunderquake if you only want to pay 70 points and don't want to add all the extra tax onto it. Skink Oracle on Troglodon, he can do the same thing. Basically there you're looking, the Troglodon's not going to do any damage, but you're looking at that +1 of their save rolls on that one. On our other units, Salamanders, amazing gives them their run and shoot, which makes, they have a little bit shorter range than the Razordons, but Salamanders are obviously way better than Razordons, and it gives them that extra range that you're going to need. Also lets them charge, because Salamanders, let's be honest, they're great on the charge as well. And +1 to their hit. It's just the Skink Priest. He does everything. You just want to give all his buffs into every unit on this list. Ripperdactyls and Terradons, if you're running those, if you've got a Skink Priest sticking around beside them, obviously they make them better the same way. You can apply these buffs to other Skink heroes if you need to. If they're in a pinch or you need them to run, maybe the Starseer needs to keep up with some knights. You can let them run and keep up that way. So quite versatile here. You can apply this to a bunch of different units in our army. Basically anything on the skink side of the table can be buffed by this little guy. Remember, he's only 70 points, and he's handing out 4 buffs. So try to protect him. He's so tiny that you can actually hide him behind quite a few monsters. If you're running a Stegadon, they're not going to be able to see this guy standing behind a Stegadon. So are there any command traits or artifacts you might want to use on this guy? So there are a command trait that I wouldn't ever put this on him probably, but it's worth noting because it talks to his command ability he has. So this one command trait, if you're a wizard, you get +1 to their casting. If you're not a wizard, you get to use the Skink Priest's Herald of the Old Ones command ability for free, so without using a command point. And that's the +1 to the hits. And so this is pretty nice if you need a command trait onto something that you would like to use this command ability for. You can also, if you're getting kind of cheeky and want to use this command trait on a Skink Priest, basically he can have one for free and pass one off on a command point to somebody else. So an easy way to get one free command point, or this +1 to hit rolls for free if you needed to on somebody else. There aren't really any artifacts that you're ever going to want to take on a Skink Priest. You're not really going to want to give these guys any of your valuable stuff. But I did think this one is relevant. Here's the artifact called Cloak of Feathers. It's used for skink units. I love this on my Stegadons and Troglodons and stuff. But this Cloak of Feathers, it adds 4 to the move characteristics. They can fly, and they get -1 to hit. This is what the Skink Priest used to have. And so on his War Scroll, on the old War Scroll, you would choose between, I think it was the missile weapon, the Starbolt staff, and the feathered cloak. And he obviously has a feathered cloak on, but that's not talked to anywhere on his War Scroll anymore. Let's hope that means that maybe we're getting an updated Skink Priest, because this model is pretty old. It comes in resin, or if I have a metal one, so these things are pretty old, and I think a lot of people just end up kitbashing them. So I think it's time for a new Skink Priest, especially one that if we're not going to have the cloaked feather on his War Scroll, apparently he's taking it off and he's giving it to whoever wants to have it in the army. So he's handing out his cloak of feathers to whoever wants it. Some other little tidbits of information I like on the Skink Priest. He's actually not a bad option to put inside the Realm Shaper engine. If you end up with the Realm Shaper engine on your half of the table, a Seraphon Priest can be inside it if he's garrisoned and activate the Power Unleashed, the thing that does mortals onto other terrain pieces. And so it's not a bad option for 70 points. Deploy him into that thing. He gets an extra +1 to his save and -1 to hit, and it actually makes his base bigger because his base assumes the size of the Realm Shaper engine, which means his buffs can be stretched out further. I've sat 2 Bastiladons in front of the Realm Shaper and put him in it, and then he can buff those Bastiladons from inside the Realm Shaper engine. So kind of a unique way to use it there. There are some ways to kitbash these guys. If you don't have one of the original ones, there's mine that is the official one. But there's some pretty easy ways to kitbash these guys. Here's one that I'd use. That I just took the Skink Alpha from the top of the Engine of the Gods and used him to kitbash into my own little Skink Priest there. And he's got a staff that resembles the staff that's on his War Scroll there. He's got a staff, and as long as he ends up with some kind of staff, then I think it'll look close enough. This one I also use a little chair or the little platform from the Engine of the Gods. Fit just about right. Another way you can use it is using the Troglodon's rider. There's a Skink Oracle on the Troglodon. If you have a couple extra of those from your Carnosaurs, pop those on a base, and you got yourself a Skink Priest. He's got a little staff there, and voila. So there's some great ways to make little Skink Priests, but for 70 points, man, I love this Skink Priest. Pair him up with some Bastiladons and Stegadons. That's my jam right there. I tend to take 2 of them in a lot of lists, especially if I desperately need that prayer to go off on one specific unit for a strategy. Like if I want to make sure and get one group of Skinks in range turn 1, I'll make sure and get maybe 2 Hordes and 2 Skink Priests that go with it, along with the 2 Skink Starpriests to really buff up all those Skinks. So a great unit, has a lot of utility. I think it has a lot of use, no matter what kind of side of the aisle, either Coalesced or Fangs of Sotek, whichever one you take, Starborn. This Skink Priest has a lot of use. So, all right, that's it for the Skink Priest. Let me know if I missed anything. How do you use him? What's your favorite buff to hand out onto what unit? Let me know in the comments below. That's the Skink Priest. Keep him protected, because it won't be too long until your opponent knows to go after this little buff machine. All right, guys. Catch y'all later.